Plants. The green frontier. These are the discussions of the podcast Horticult. Its continuing mission to talk about strange new cultivars, to seek out new flowers and plant them, to boldly garden like no one has before. All right, so thanks for listening. This episode is going to be number 25. Weed control or weeds or we kind of got off on the rails on this one. I had just been starting a new diet, and it's the intermittent fasting thing. So I was really shaky. I hadn't eaten in 24 hours, so I was off the rails on some of my thoughts. So Brad reined it in. He made it really good, and hopefully you enjoy it. So this is Weed Control. Let's get it on. I'm Blaine.
And I'm Brad.
And we are the Horticult. Plant on, Babylon. Woot woot. Okay. So today on the Horticult, we're going to discuss all manner of things, but the thing that we really want to focus on today are weeds. Weeds suck, and why do they suck? I don't know. Yeah. So weeds. I want to define what I feel a weed is.
Okay.
Just so. And it could be whatever anyone wants to define a weed. I mean, this is weeds according to Blaine. And I like this rule, but if you have a different feeling about it, then God be with you, my son. You know, whatever. I don't care.
La benedición.
I don't like anything in my garden that I haven't personally planted. Some people enjoy having starts, or what do you call them, volunteers or whatever, those kind of things, and I remove everything. So if I didn't plant it and I don't like where it is, it's a weed. I pull it.
Clear cut
is
another term for that.
Is that what it is?
No, just kidding.
I don't know. Stop. You're making me think of stuff.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So that's what I feel. I go off of weeds. So I kind of go through that in my mind. Did I plant that? I don't care what it is. I'm removing it. Funny story. So when I first moved into my PG house, which is, okay, for those listening that are not in Utah County, we abbreviate our cities with the letters. So PG is Pleasant Grove. AF is American Fork. I think those are the only two that we use.
Yeah, you don't really say SPF.
Yeah.
For Spanish Fork.
Well, we don't care about Spanish Fork. Just kidding. Yeah, we love Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork.
P for Payson.
Mm-hmm. P. Anyway, so when I say PG, that's what I do. So my PG house, it was an older home. It had a lot of existing vegetation. I didn't know what anything was. When I moved there, I hadn't gone into the program at Utah State to know, what is this plant stuff. I didn't do it yet. So there was some stuff coming up, and I didn't know what it was, so I just mowed over it. Finding out later what it was, we had some peonies.
Oh.
And I just cranked over the cross of them. But then I didn't plant it, so I didn't know what it was, so I didn't really care. But it kind of screwed those over from then on. I could never quite get them to... I bloomed a couple times in the stint that we lived there, but yeah, that one time kind of...
It chunked it.
It just stunted it. Like, I actually think I brought it into Sunny and was like, what is this? And she's like, that's our peonies. My
prized peonies.
Yeah, well, we didn't know. Some old lady lived there before us, so
yeah.
Whatever. But, yeah, that was kind of a thing. Yes, I ruined it, but I didn't know what it was, so I'm okay with it.
So your definition for weeds, now, and you're talking about plant weeds, obviously.
Yes.
We're a horticulture group here, and that's what we talk about mostly. But that term, weeds or weeding out, has a lot of other meanings. Like you could weed out or rogue out people who
Right.
you don't want to necessarily have in your design.
Design of life.
Or like what else? I mean, you could rogue out, or you could weed out applications for a job. So anyway, that term can be used on many different levels, but for all intents and purposes, and where it actually originated its name is from plants.
Yeah. So since we are focusing on that, we'll talk about that more. So you go into weed control. I think weed control is kind of a you gotta know what the weed you're dealing with is. You gotta understand its life cycle to be able to control it. And so certain weeds are perennial. Those ones you need to remove most. It's just different.
Yeah, they're anchored in much better with their root system.
I guess it's just timing. The timing of being able to control them.
Yes.
So like with annuals, they're going to be the first ones. Usually they're the first ones up, ready to rock. And you got to get them before they bud. So if you can spray them, if you can pull them, get them out of there before they produce any flowers. And because they're weeds, their flowers are minimal. They're going to be harder to see. They're putting their energy into reproduction. They're not going to put their energy into having a super big, impressive flower. I guess. And then we don't know exactly what they're coming from, what they're going for, like what insect they're trying to attract. You gotta figure out exactly what they're trying to get to harvest and spread their seeds around. The one that keeps coming into mind is it's not an annual, it's a perennial. Oh, maybe it is an annual. Shiz, that one is an annual.
What's the variety?
I'm thinking of the puncture vine.
Oh yeah.
So that's an annual. That's harder to control because people let them flower, and then you're stepping on these pokies in your foot. So you really you need to understand: is this an annual, a perennial, or a biannual? And then if it is a annual, a lot of the annuals can be controlled by pre-emergence. Because they have to come up through a seed every year. They come up every year by a seed.
Yeah, and sometimes even twice a year. The life cycle of that particular weed may just be so short that it germinates in the spring. It produces flower and seed by midsummer, and then all of a sudden the next generation kicks into gear. There's still enough heat in the summertime to then spread its wings. And one particular variety that comes to mind that does that is the elm, the Siberian elm tree.
Yep.
And so trees can be weeds as well, right? That one actually seeds twice a year, early spring, and then also late in the summer. So, kind of a different idea there, thinking of a tree being a weed, but
yeah,
it can be.
Well, it's like, I guess that kind of goes on the characteristics that qualify a plant for being a weed. It's very
prolific,
yeah,
aggressive,
yeah. So you can't contain it, where the plants that we usually plant can be contained quite easily.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why we've chosen them. They're able. We like things to be in like a bunch, and have it not encroach on other things.
Things to stay kind of tidy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really is how much effort you want to put into controlling them. So we talked about lawn weeds already. Broadleaf to control those weeds in your lawn. So where am I going with this? Just to be able to where I like to decide to spray something, I kind of go over, okay, where is it? How close is it to other things? Because if I'm using Roundup, so it's going to help me decide if I'm using a non-selective herbicide, and then is it a broadleaf or is it a weed, grass weed? So grass weeds are kind of, for me, those are the harder ones for me to control because you can't use broadleaf on them if they're in your lawn. So you have to kind of single them out and spray them with Roundup. If they're in like they're growing up in something, so maybe you have a shrub and this grass is growing up inside of it, then you can use a grass killer, so it only affects the monocots. So monocots and dicots, we talked about that before a little bit. Anything that's a grass, it's going to be a monocot. Anything that has an actual leaf that we're familiar with, not a long bladey leaf, it's going to be a dicot. Sometimes I think there's something that grows. I think it's kind of a mustard, but it's a biannual in its first life cycle, in its vegetative. It looks very much like a grass. It's in a rosette. It's all clumped together, but when you pick it or like you break it, it has milk in it, so it's latex. And that one is a tricky one because I think it looks like a grass, but it technically is I think it's a monocot. Ah, dang it, I can't remember. But it blends really in there. Where I see it is when it goes from vegetative to reproductive.
And then switches.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if broadleafs worked on it or not. I don't think they did. I think that's why we had trouble with it. Is because the broadleaf wouldn't work on it. So it's a monocot. So it's stuff like that.
Yeah. So just real quick to go over what we've talked about. You've defined a weed.
My weed.
You've defined your weed. Yeah. Mine is more or less the same definition wise. If that plant, whether it's beautiful or not, is out of place. And typically it's the plants that are very aggressive. In my mind, are much more on the weed list than not. So we've defined them. We've talked about the three categories: perennial, annual, and biennial. The important thing about knowing that is how to treat them. Perennials you treat totally different than you do the annual varieta. And then we're talking about dicots and monocots. So we've defined that, and also knowing that will determine how you control that weed, whether you're applying a 2,4-D or it's called over the top monocot grass killer or monocot herbicide.
Do you know what the active ingredient is in that, or is that?
I want to.
It's not used a lot.
It starts with a T. It's like triazole. Mm-hmm. That's when I've looked at the chemical name. That's what rings a bell. But don't go by that. That's what Brad told us to do.
Yeah,
it's all good. Okay, so then another category that is important to know, or that it would be good for us to talk about, I think anyway, is different levels of control. So, and what I mean by that is economically, or like a price, a categorical price per amount of weed control.
Right.
And let's just start with the first